Okay. Let me pause this real quick so I can have the chat up here. Go like this. Okay, I got it. Okay, so that should be good. Hello, ladies. I always do it through Zoom because Zoom just looks better. And I think I like it. Okay, so let's just wait and make sure that everyone gets the link and everything's good with the audio and all that good stuff. Hey, Amber. Okay. Amber, you get prize for being first tonight. All right, yep, looks like it's all good. All right, let me know if there are any audio issues. I think everything looks good, but you never know. Hey, Amy. Okay, at the end today, go ahead and stick around because I am going to be doing a giveaway. I totally forgot to bring what I am giving away, but I will tell you what it is. It'll be two things that I am giving away in one gift, and it's going to be, I'm going to mail it to whoever wins it. So hopefully it'll be someone in the US, not someone in Canada. I will mail it to Canada if I need to. It shouldn't be that expensive. It should all fit into an envelope. So stick around to the end and we will do a giveaway. I think we'll probably just do whoever first answers the question, and it might have something to do with what we're talking about tonight. So, hey, Joyce, we will see what happens with that. Okay, so stick around for the whole thing. At the end, remind me. I need to text Amanda and tell her to remind me if I forget to do the giveaway, because I will probably forget. Someone remind me if I start to wind it up and I have not done it yet. Hey, Sarah, let me text Amanda and tell her. Sorry, I can't multitask and talk and text at the same time. Remind me to do the give away at the end if I forget. Okay, so texted her. So now I have someone to blame if I forget, right? Just kidding. Okay, so tonight we're going to delve into, hey, Julia, this topic of generational sins, or even, I first named this breaking generational curses, but I didn't want to give the wrong idea because it's not like this actual curse or voodoo or something that someone says over your family. So I renamed it to breaking generational sins. And it kind of, generational curses kind of sounds like a weird topic just because there's so many connotations with curses as being witchcraft or whatever. That's not what I was talking about. Hello, Raquel. I've missed you, Raquel. Hopefully we can see you soon. Maybe for April, the family month coming up next week, you can try to join us for 1 or 2 of the weeks. We missed your family. They drive a long time to our church. So it's been a little bit since we've seen them because of car problems. Hey, Chanello. So this might sound like a weird subject, but it is something that just seems to be human nature, because when I talk about generational curses or generational sins, I'm not meaning that someone cursed your family and there's no getting out of it. God talks in the Bible, though, about visiting the 3rd and 4th generation in the family of those that are sinning against God. But in those verses, he also talks about if you repent, then basically they would be restored. So I think of this as sin that's being passed down, because we each have our own choices to make when it comes to accepting God's free gift of salvation and living a life in the Spirit, or following the same sins of our fathers. Hey, Sarah. But it can be done. Some sins are very prevalent in families, and it's hard for someone to break out of that pattern, especially if they were raised that way. Those raised in an alcoholic home are going to, on average, be more permissive when it comes to alcohol in some cases. But yet in others, they're totally against it because they saw the damage that it and the havoc that it wreaked on their home. Excuse me. My father-in-law is an example of someone who saw different patterns of sin in his own family growing up, and he decided that his family was going to be different. He saw the effects of alcohol, so he developed a strict standard for himself. He wouldn't even eat in restaurants that had liquor, and that made it really difficult at times because There's barely any places that don't have alcohol. So he was pretty much limited to family restaurants that didn't serve alcohol or fast food if he ate out, but that's just one thing that he decided. He did not ever want his kids to be around alcohol. So if there was ever a family function with alcohol, they just wouldn't go. And so his brothers and sisters knew if we have a family reunion and we invite Tom, then, we can't have alcohol there. They just knew he was completely against it. He refused to even go down the aisle in a store that had liquor. He didn't want his kids seeing it. He didn't want to be around it. But because of this, his son, my husband, grew up with a hatred towards alcohol, and he's never had a drop of liquor pass his lips. My own dad also hated alcohol. He was a drinker up until he got saved, actually. Now, my mom and dad they're good examples of people who got saved and their life did dramatically turn around. That doesn't always happen. There can be people that repent unto salvation as far as turning their belief from whatever they were believing in to believing on the Lord Jesus Christ, getting saved, but yet then they don't walk in the Spirit. And, their lives overall don't change much. But my mom and dad were an example of being first generation Christians. They were both from homes where their parents were not saved. And my dad grew up Catholic, and alcohol was very prevalent in Catholicism. In fact, he drank when he had it's not bar mitzvah, that's Jewish. What is it in Catholicism? Confirmation? Altar boy? He became an altar boy? I can't remember, something like that. My mom grew up Lutheran, and I think for girls and boys, they had confirmation with Lutherans, but with Catholics, it was something different. Like he became an altar boy or something. And he remembers seeing the priest drink. He drank it very early, but then when he got saved at 27, I believe he was 26 or 27 when he got saved. I can't remember. I want to say, I would have to check with my mom with this, but I want to say he stopped drinking almost immediately, and he didn't want it in his house. He didn't want to be around it. So whenever we had family functions at our house, all my uncles who were big drinkers, and his whole family was big drinkers, being Catholic, they knew not to even try to bring alcohol. So he would always prefer to have the family things because he didn't want alcohol there, whereas there might have been at some other family functions. So confirmation. Okay, so it's the same in Lutheran and Catholicism. So both of them, both my dad and my husband's dad, took a strong line stance when it came to alcohol. And because of this, I also grew up with a hatred. Now, when I was first married, we used to get the newspaper, and I would read articles every time that there was an article about a drunk driving accident, or someone killed in a drunk driving accident. I would clip it out, and I was actually going to save it for my kids and have them read it and see exactly what alcohol can do to families and just the effects of alcohol. But from the time our kids were little as well, we've instilled in them the hatred for alcohol. So just all that to say that this is an area where my father-in-law and my dad were determined that they wanted to break it in their own family. They didn't want anything to do with it. They wanted as far away from it as possible. So it can be done. Because of my dad also taking a strong stance, I'm 41 years old, and I've also never had a drop of alcohol pass my lips. And I plan on going to the grave without ever touching this stuff. I don't say that bragging. I give the credit to, first of all, my parents for raising me that way, and, to God, but it's never been a temptation for me because I've never drank it. So I feel the same way. Drugs, alcohol, smoking, if you never take that first sip and if you never take that first hit of drugs, you're not going to struggle with it because you've never felt the effects. You don't know what it's like. You have no desire for it. And that's kind of how my husband and I are when it comes to those things. So tonight we're going to go over some ways that you can break free of the generational sins in your own lives. And that could be as simple as anger issues, or as big as marriage problems, even relationship issues. We're going to go through thought life, things of the Lord, keeping your mind pure when it comes to pornography and different things like that. So we're going to delve into it. If you guys have any questions, go ahead, leave them. this is coming from my viewpoint of being raised in a first generational home where my mom and dad really, really tried to break those generational sins that they were raised under. So I saw their effort and I did not take it for granted. And because I saw their effort and they instilled in me the importance of keeping these things out of my own life, I want to pass it on to my own children. And so I'm striving to do that as well. I do feel that as generations go on that have had victory in certain areas, maybe we can become a little more laid back about these things. And when we become too laid back, I feel like we have the danger of our kids not taking it quite as seriously as we did. So there are some big priorities in the McMurtry home. Your priorities don't have to be my priorities, and we'll go over those. So you might have different priorities, and that's totally fine. But hey, Stephanie, these are just, priorities in my home coming from my viewpoint, whatever. So let's go over, first of all, generational sins or curses when it comes to raising children, because broken people often raise other broken people. And it's just a sad fact. My mom definitely strived. Oh, I hate that word. Why do I always use it? My mom always tried. There we go. My mom always tried to do things differently than her mom. She was raised in a very, very angry household. And in fact, my mom tells a story. I don't think she'd mind me telling it because she doesn't. It's, it happened a long time ago. Her and her sister were like physically fighting, and they like fell through or busted through one of the windows in the home. And it's just, that was her home. There was yelling, there was screaming, there was throwing things, there was physical altercations. So she really, really, really tried to not do that. Now, she didn't always succeed. And, there are times she messed up. Now, being a mom of 8, I look back and I understand a lot more of just how hard it was to keep your emotions in check all the time. But I've tried to do better than she did. And I really pray that my kids can do better than me, because I'm not perfect. We all have our times when we mess up and we yell and we wish we wouldn't have. And so I'm praying that my kids can do better than me. But one thing that I've tried to do when it comes to anger is have some coping mechanisms. First of all, realize when I am getting heated and I'm going to reach that boiling point. So I realize that I have a weakness when it comes to anger in my own life. And I have problem reining that in when I get heated. So first of all, I recognize when I'm going to get heated. And in many situations where I have overcome it, I have separated myself from the situation when I start feeling heated. And I will just make sure one of the olders is watching the baby, and I will retreat to my room just for a few minutes to calm down, pray about it, ask the Lord to help me not blow my top. And just go in my room and close the door and just have some alone time. Also, I do better if I talk it out with the kids rather than yelling. Am I always perfect with this? No, I do mess up. I've gotten better as I've gotten older, and my mom got better too as she got older. I feel like we learn better how to cope with things and what we need to do in order to not blow our top. So, I've gotten better as I've gotten older. Now, one thing that I have really, I've been really good about is not ever using physical force when it comes to throwing, kicking, slamming things, hitting. That's not me. My mom was raised in a home where that happened quite often, and I never wanted that in my home. I have also known of other homes where this was going on. It came out later in Christian homes where there was things being thrown, and there was holes being kicked through walls, and there was, coffee tables being karate chopped in half, crazy things like that. So please draw the line somewhere. And whether that is yelling I don't like it. I try not to. That's kind of my line. I don't, so if I cross it, then shame on me. I need to reassess and start again. But please have that line drawn before you get to physical force. It's never going to help with you breaking things, throwing things, and I think if you have some coping mechanisms and realize that you have this problem and you need to be careful, that will definitely help. Acknowledging that you have a problem in this area. I think that's hard for us as women to be humble and admit that we have weaknesses. And it is a humbling thing to take responsibility. And we're going to talk about that even when it comes to being raised by a narcissistic parent. When you're raised by a narcissistic parent who never took responsibility for anything they did, and it was always your fault, as you grow older, you're going to have a harder time taking responsibility for anything you've done. So just realize that we all are sinners. And if we're walking in the flesh, we're going to have these problems are going to be very prevalent in our life. And that's why we have to put on the armor of God every day. And that's why we have to walk in the spirit so that we don't do these things. And we all have weaknesses where, drugs and alcohol are not my weakness. Anger is a weakness when it comes to just getting frustrated, being impatient. So I have to really, really watch that in my own life. So let me read some of these comments. Drinking alcohol is not a sin, but getting drunk is a sin, right? I believe I take a harder line stance on alcohol. The Bible has verses talking about not even looking at the wine when it's right in the cup or when it moves all right, which means when it's fermented. And I tend to believe that Jesus never makes rotten things, which makes me believe that at the wedding, when he made the wine, it was probably just freshly squeezed grape juice and it was not fermented, especially since he just made it right there. But yeah, the Bible talks about not even looking at alcohol. So I believe it is a sin to even drink. And if you never drink, you never even have the possibility of getting drunk or taking the chance that you're going to hurt someone else. I think anything, I personally believe that things are a sin when they can lead you to hurting other people. So my husband is walking in, which is awkward. Okay. So let me read some of these other comments. Yeah. Okay, so yes, I agree, Joyce, too. She said the Bible tells us to stay away from strong drink. Wine in the Bible often means fresh juice. I agree. And let's see. Sarah, yes, we're going to talk about that too. She said, my mom never hugged us or said she loved us, so I do that all the time with my kids. And we're going to talk about taking the bad in your life and turning it into good in your own life. So learning from things and using them rather than being the victim and bemoaning your horrible life that you've had. So, but yeah, practice. We have issues pop up every day that are going to try our patience. And we just, if we fail, just get right back up on that horse the next time and try again. You have a whole lifetime ahead of you. And you're not going to ruin your kid because they break your favorite vase and you yell at them. That's not going to ruin them. Especially if they know that you love them and you show them that you love them. Like Sarah said, you tell them all the time you love them, you hug them, you do things with them, you really try to get to the heart of things. They're going to realize as they grow older, everyone has bad days, everyone has grouchy days. And that's too where you can kind of show them a little bit of grace. Realize that they're going to have bad days too. My babies are terrible on Mondays. Like today, I don't know what it was. It was terrible. And I've just come to learn that Mondays are going to be bad with the babies. And so when I set my expectation very low for Mondays, it does not even faze me anymore. I don't get upset because I feel like if we have too unrealistic expectations when it comes to certain things, it's like a 1-year-old acting perfectly and never crying. And the day after we were at church all day long and she missed her naps. She takes 2 naps a day. She only gets 1 on Sunday. So if I have my expectations set lower, that helps a lot. So Mondays are pretty much just a free for all as far as the babies go. And I've come to realize that. So if we ever have an out of the ordinary Monday where it's great, then great. That'll be wonderful. And I'll take that as it comes. But yeah. Yes, and that's true too, Ashley. She said, I think it's a sin to drink because it isn't avoiding the appearance of evil. And that's very true because, um, how many drinks does it take to get you drunk? I don't really know the answer to that. And I know for everyone, every other person, it's different. Everyone's created differently as far as what their body can handle. So I'm just never even going to find out. Never going to see how much it takes to get you drunk. So, but relationship issues, let's go over that. Okay, this has to do with raising kids too. These are all kind of, there's a lot under raising kids because I know even though you are out of the house pretty early on, I mean, I got married at 20. So I've been out of the house for 21 years. So I was only under my mom's roof for, I say my mom because my dad died when I was 17, but I was only under my mom and dad's roof for, 20 years. So I've been out longer now. A lot of stuff happens in those first few years of life that kind of set the tone for the rest of your life. Now, I want to say that even if you've had it bad in your childhood, you can be an overcomer and not a victim. Many, many people fall into this victim status where they just spend the rest of their life just bemoaning the fact that they didn't have the perfect upbringing. Well, it comes to a point where you just have to realize that you're going to move on and you're going to take what the bad that happened and you're going to remember how it felt when that bad happened. And you're going to determine not to do that to your own children. And that's kind of the way that I've looked at different things in my life. So there are different stages of relationships, from the time that they're a baby, that baby needs you to bond with them, hug them, kiss them, rock them, go to sleep with them, co-sleep if you want to, nurse them if that's a bonding thing for you. That was always a bonding thing for me. That's what babies need. Then as they get a little bit older, they start needing to, you to keep them from getting killed, like when they're 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's where you're really laying them. 1 to 5 is very important for laying the groundwork of your relationship with them. Can they trust you? Does mommy and daddy love them? Are they secure with you? That is all laid within the first 5 years of having kids. From about 5 on, they start becoming a little more independent. They start learning, reading, all that stuff. And in middle school, they need you to teach them discipline. And that's where you not losing it is also going to help them learn how not to lose it. You having self-control is going to help them have self-control. And then from the time when they become a teenager, they need you emotionally. They need you to be there to talk to them. They have lots of problems when they're teenagers. And then when they become an adult, they need you there for influence. They don't need you so much telling them what to do. You've done your job. It's time for them to start making decisions on their own. But you need to be there to be their influence. So I see this like hair sticking out right there. It's bugging me. Sorry, I got to get it. Oh, now it's really sticking out. Sorry, that was distracting me. There we go. That's better. So there are different stages to your relationship. So devote your life to raising your children. Realize that you're not just going to have 18 years. It's an ongoing thing. I hope my kids always need me in some way or another. I hope my girls always want to text mom and ask her, Mom, what do I do in this situation? What do I do in this situation? Good relationships don't just happen. You don't just pop out a baby so that you can just let it live and eat in your home for the next 18 years and then kick them out. This is supposed to be a lifelong thing, and you have to really, really work on your relationship, especially when you have a lot of kids. And you guys know what I do with mine. Just today I took Lana out, and Lana, her quality time is her love language. And she was just lit up with joy the whole time she was with me. We went to a little cafe, then we went grocery shopping, and she just talked my ear off and was smiling and kept hugging me and cuddling with me. She loved it. So find out what your kids' love language is and build off of that. Be different than the way that you were raised. Remember your hurts and do the opposite. When you have narcissistic parents, one way that you can show your kids how to draw boundaries with people is drawing boundaries yourself. Show your kids how it is done to have those set boundaries in your life. And often narcissistic parents raise narcissistic children. In fact, if I've had a few narcissistic people come through my life, and the theme seems to be that their parents were also narcissists. And oftentimes the adult child doesn't even realize that they're exhibiting the same exact traits as their narcissistic parent, where that comes to just never taking fault for anything. It's always everyone else's fault, never theirs. They are always blaming other people. They're very angry people most of the time. They have very deep rooted insecurity problems most of the time. So it all goes back to the way they were raised most of the time. And the narcissistic person has to realize that they are before they can change. And some of the biggest narcissistic people I've known call everyone else narcissists, which is really funny to me because it's like they're so socially unaware that they don't even understand how they come off to other people, or, you know, just how nasty and angry they are to everyone else. They cannot see it. So first of all, you have to realize if you have that tendency, and we all have narcissistic tendencies, all of us, because we're human. Being a narcissist is just basically everything's about you. You look out for number one, nothing's ever your fault. You want to blame everyone else. We all have that tendency. So realize that we have that tendency and try to avoid being that way. Be self-aware. Watch how you treat others. Are you a bully to others? Are you mean? Are you demeaning? Do you pick apart people? You know, is anything ever your fault? Do you constantly blame other people for everything going wrong in your life? You know, look at these things and be very, very aware of them. So, sorry, I'm missing the chat. I'm going to try not, I'm sorry, Jesse, we all have fails. Today I actually did not, I think because I just knew, Abby and I, we always just look at each other like, where it's Monday. We just don't know. The babies are just gonna be rotten. Oh, yes, Sarah, I agree. I had very low expectations today, and it's a good thing because it was not a good day with the babies. Oh, I think they were crying pretty much the whole time. They're just tired and out of routine. So it definitely, yeah, Joyce, I agree. When everyone else is horrible, maybe it's because you're the drama. Maybe the drama is stemming from you. Just be self-aware. You know, we're all prone to it. We have to recognize our weaknesses and accept fault. Those who can't humble themselves to accept responsibility for their hurtful actions are most likely narcissists if they're never apologetic. Even if they apologize, this is what they do. I'm sorry I did this, but you did this to trigger me. I'm sorry I did this, but you acted this way. A true apology is, I'm sorry I did this. I know it was very hurtful to you, and I'm going to try to change. I'm sorry I did this. I accept responsibility and I want to move forward. That's a true apology. Not I'm sorry, but. Always watch out for those buts, because that's usually how they kind of feel at the end. What about, though, a lack of discipline? Well, maybe you came from a home that was just a free for all, nothing was ever done. And, you know, you're a Christian now, and you've learned that I'm supposed to discipline my kids, right? I'm supposed to guide my kids, and I'm supposed to maybe spank my kids, you know, and I was never, so I don't know where to start, or I don't know what to do. So I would give you, the advice I would give you is ask older, wiser moms, maybe moms that were raised in a Christian home where it was done, moms that know, because to some of us, it's just second nature. We know how to discipline without losing our temper. You know, we know the right amount of discipline and when we need to hold back. I liked a question someone asked in the Gently Led Sisters group about toddler tantrums. And I really liked some of the advice given, because you have to be, you as the mom knows your child the most. And at age 2 and 3, while temper tantrums are annoying and they're exhausting, Kelly threw about 3 today, I think. They're exhausting. You have to be the bigger person when it comes to toddler temp, and you cannot melt down like them as well. And you have to know when to discipline, and you have to know when to hold back. Why is your toddler acting that way? You know, are they overtired? Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? A lot of times now, Kelly can communicate extremely well. So she is very different in the fact that I know what she wants. She's just very strong-willed. But there are some kids that at 2 and 3, they don't know how to communicate with words very well. So it's really difficult to try to figure out what exactly they want, and they get frustrated, and that's why they have the fits. So you as the mom, you have to figure out, why is my child doing this? Is this a time where I need to discipline, or is this a time where they just need a hug, or they just need a snack, or they just need to cuddle with me while we watch Cocomelon or something? You know, there's different things that you can do, and it doesn't have to be militant and rigid and I'm going to force my kid to obey. I'm going to force my 2-year-old to listen no matter what I say. Please don't do that. Your kids will grow up hating you and hating their home life. Please have a happy home. Sometimes 2-year-olds are overstimulated and they just need a hug, you know, so really, really watch that. Really, really watch that. You know, don't watch others discipline. Maybe you have a family in church and you watch them discipline. Now, for me, that's a little difficult because I tend to, if I discipline, I like to take my kid, I like to separate myself from the situation. And Holly Robinson did a really good comment in there too. And, you know, she said she likes to separate her toddler from whatever is triggering them at the moment. So I also like to do that. I like to just get alone and not make a spectacle of it. I've never done that with my kids when disciplining. I don't like it. It embarrasses them. It makes it worse, I think. And it's just awkward for everyone else involved. So I try to take my child, even if that's out to the van. Maybe there's not an empty room. So I just go out to the van and deal with it. I like to take them away, and then they have that one-on-one time and I can figure out what the root of the problem is, or they can just cry it out. I don't know. Sometimes I just let Kelly cry it out because there's nothing I can do. She's just throwing a fit. You know, don't go overboard. Like I said already, know your child, figure out their triggers, figure out what is ticking them off, what is triggering it. I know one thing that's helped for me with Kelly is naps, as she would always have a meltdown. So now we set the timer for naps and bedtime. We set the timer and she knows when the timer goes off, it's bedtime or it's nap time. And that helps a lot with her. So I try to stop the tantrum before it even starts. You won't ruin your kid by not spanking them one time or spanking them unnecessarily another time. So don't let all this guilt be piled on you. I messed up. I haven't spanked yet. I knew a family didn't even start spanking until their kid was like 8 because they had never been around that. They weren't saved. And, then they got saved and their child was always a little bit older, but they did it. They wanted to follow God's word. And, it was kind of pitiful spankings, but that's fine. It got the message across. So just know your child. But what about a lack of love in the home? And this also comes a lot with narcissistic parents if you were raised by narcissistic parents. Now, a lot of times when you're being raised by a narcissistic parent, you as the child, kids are smart, you figure out how to get the attention that you need. And so oftentimes kids will act out defiantly to get the negative attention. A lot of times kids figure out when they're younger, if they get sick, their mom pays attention to them. So then they will start lying. They will start saying they're sick when they're not, because they know that mom will pay attention to them. Maybe she works full time outside the home and they're sent to school and they know if I'm sick, mom takes the day off and has to stay home with me. And then they get that attention that they're craving. So a lot of times this happens. And then it transfers into their adult life. As they get older, it worked when they were younger, so why won't it work when they're older? So these are usually the ones that are chronic complainers about their health, or something's always wrong. Hey, and I have chronic health issues, so I understand. But there's a difference between someone who has chronic health issues and just deals with it, and then the one who's just constantly talking about it, constantly bringing it up, constantly complaining about it. It's just her life is awful and no one else has it as bad as her. So watch for that. A lot of times that stems from when you're younger, and you got the negative attention when you were younger. And so you just keep acting that way as you get older. And there's actually a name for it. Narproxy. I can't remember. I can't remember what the name is. And there's even in extreme situations where parents will make their kids sick to get that negative attention. And that is a mental illness. At that point, that is definite mental illness. So there are weird situations where that happens. But if you have a lack of love, if you grew up with a lack of love in your home, Force yourself to show physical affection. Maybe it's not your love language. Maybe you're uncomfortable because it doesn't seem normal to you because it was never done that way when you were growing up. But you got to force yourself to show that physical affection. Force yourself to say the words you need to say. It's funny because I believe that one of my love languages is words of affirmation. I really get a lot out of it if my husband gives me a compliment, or if he tells me how great I am, or I'm a wonderful wife. And I'm very sensitive to criticism from those I love. Okay, so not from the outside world. I couldn't care less about that, but from the ones that are closest to me, I am sensitive to criticism. But it's difficult for me sometimes to say the words. I need to get better about that. And so you would think that I would be good at that, but just tell your kids, I'm proud of you. Tell your kids, I love you. Tell your kids, you are amazing. Today, I told Lana when I was with her, I just looked at her, I said, you are such a pretty little girl. And she seriously, it was so cute. I wish I would have had a picture of it. She was like, she literally did that. It was really, really cute. So, maybe with Lana, maybe a little bit of words of affirmation. And as you get older, you're going to find that if that is one of their love languages, it might not even take much to get after them because they're going to be very sensitive if they upset you or they make you disappointed in them. So that can be a good thing. Abby's always been that way. Abby is probably the one that got the least amount of spankings as she got older because you literally just had to look at her. You just look at her like that and she like starts crying. Most of the time you don't even have to say a word. So she has a very, very sensitive heart when it comes to criticism. Her parents not being happy with her, other people not being happy with her. She takes it very hard. So that's it, Julia and Ashley, what you said. I don't know how to pronounce it. By proxy, that was the word I was thinking of. Yeah, I don't know how you would say that word though, but that is the fancy name for it. And then find out what makes your kids happy and do it for them. If you were lacking in your love tank being filled as you were being raised, then try to fill your kids' love tank. And I know it's difficult. When you have a big family, it's difficult. I understand. And some days it's not going to be a daily thing. I'm thinking more like a weekly thing. You fill a different kid's love tank. For Chloe, that would be buying her a plant. Her name literally means green, and she is my plant girl. She loves plants. She plants a garden every year. She buys a million plants. She sent me pictures before saying this is going to be my home, and it's just like covered in plants. So the other day I told her, she was watching the babies for me while Abby and I ran and did something. I was like, I'll get you a Starbucks on the way back because you watch babies. And she's like, no, just buy me a plant. So we bought her a plant. She'd rather have that than Starbucks. But yeah, remember that you set the tone in the home. You do as the mom. You're the one who's there 24/7. You're the one who's pretty much has the responsibility of raising the kids if your husband's working full time to support you guys. So just realize that you set the tone in the home. So hopefully that covered a lot of stuff when it comes to raising kids. Now let's go into marriage. I should have gotten a drink. I'm like, I have a little bit of a cold. My throat is getting all tickly. So hopefully I can get through the rest of this. Okay, but marriage, what are some different ways that you can break generational sins when it comes to marriage? Did you know, unfortunately, statistically, if you come from a home with divorced parents, you are more likely to get divorced. Probably part of that reason is that you never saw how your parents worked things out. And divorce wasn't out for them. So in your mind, divorce isn't out for you too. And maybe you didn't see a healthy marriage. Maybe you didn't see a healthy relationship. Whether or not you know it, you and your husband's relationship is modeling lots to your kids. You're either modeling a very unhealthy relationship or you're modeling a healthy relationship, and they're going to grow up with that in their mind. Thankfully, my parents had a pretty good relationship. Obviously there were things I saw that I didn't quite like, so I've tried to remember that and not do the same thing. And every marriage has issues. Every marriage is difficult. Every marriage is hard. And you're going to have to figure out what those issues are and try to work through them. But think back, is this stemming from the way I saw my mom handle it? Or is this stemming from the way I saw my dad handle it? So think back to different times in your life and be aware. Just be self-aware with all this stuff. If this was a generational sin in your family, be self-aware enough to try to change it in your own family. So, for us, there is a no divorce rule. That's just known. Divorce is never talked about. Divorce is never said. Our kids are very secure in the fact that they know mom and dad will work through anything that comes their way. Seek out couples who are happy and ask what they were doing. My husband and I were joking. And the running joke in our church is that instead of my husband and I doing marriage counseling, like we have been apt to do the past year or two, we are just going to send all the couples to Aaron and Sarah Turner, because they claim they've never had a fight, which I find hard to believe, but they claim it. And I'm going to believe them because I like them. And I think they're telling me the truth. I don't think they're liars. So I'm going to believe them. So I told her, I said, I'm just going to send all the couples to you, and you guys can help them out. You'll be like the, staff counselors, the staff marriage counselors, and everyone can go to you and figure out what you're doing where there are no fights. Now, I have often asked my husband when we've gone away for overnight, and I told them this too. What do people fight about that don't have kids? I don't get it, because the kids are the stressors in the home, right? And I guess financial, people can fight about financial stuff too, but when we're away overnight, it's like I don't know what we would fight about, honestly. So yeah, if you have any marriage problems, maybe I can hook you up with Sarah Turner. So I think that's great though. Hey, it takes all kinds, right? It takes all kinds of marriages, takes all kinds of people. They're just obviously a really, really good fit. Sorry, Julia, I think I missed your question. Did you say something? Okay. Okay, yeah. So realize that you both need to give 100%. I don't believe in any of this half and half junk. I give half, you give half. No, it needs to be 100%. You need to be in it. But this all comes down to being careful about who you marry before you marry them. Realize that once you make those vows, you're going to make it work. No matter what, you're going to make it work. Every problem must be worked through. Okay, every problem. You don't get a pass. You don't get to just throw in the towel one day because you're just sick of trying to work through it. All relationships have problems, and every relationship needs to have areas where you work through them. Ask yourself the hard questions. What caused your parents' divorce? Are there similarities in the way you act and the way your mom acted? Did she just refuse to love her husband, refuse to submit to him, refuse to see him as the authority? What about if you're a guy, which I hope you're not watching for a guy, but if you are, what did your dad do wrong? Did he have an affair? Are you prone to have lustful thoughts? Are you prone to want to cheat on your wife? Be aware of these things that happen, because I'm telling you, it's so sad. I've been in the ministry for a long time, and often I see homes where adultery happened, and the kids are just devastated, and the wife is devastated, and they go through this horrendous experience of the dad committing adultery, and then the son grows up and does the same thing to his wife. It's horrible, and it's one of those generational sins. I truly believe adultery is one of those generational sins that you're going to have to break. You can break the link in the chain and start a new chain where there is no adultery in your life. So adultery, drunkenness, some of these lustful things that we're going to talk about in a little bit, those are all generational sins that I tend to see passed down from one family to another. Fight for your marriage. Realize that marriage is the most important relationship in your entire life, because I believe even more than your kids, which that's right next to it, obviously God, your relationship with God is first and foremost. And if you put that first and foremost, everything else is going to fall in line. God is first and foremost. And if you love God, you're going to love your husband. And if you love your husband, you're going to love your children. And it all just kind of falls into line. But I feel like a lot of people, when they start having kids, the kids kind of become the priority. and their marriage kind of falls by the wayside, don't let your marriage fall by the wayside. You know, still do those things for each other that made you fall in love with each other. Go on dates, go away overnight if you can find people to watch your kids. Luckily now we have all of our kids. This is a whole new season in my life. All of my kids are older, not all, but I have older kids, 20, 19, 17, who have driver's licenses that can stay home overnight while we go away. So we have definitely every few months we try to get away just to keep that spark there and keep our relationship fresh. So address sin. If there's sin in your life, if your husband has a lust problem, he is into pornography, he needs to confess that and get accountability in his life. You know, you have to address sin. You can't just keep sweeping sin under the rug and expect that your marriage is going to flourish. You have to address sin. A lot of times women have the problem with lustful thoughts or drunkenness or drugs, whatever sin it is, address it and get accountability and get counseling. Go to a trusted pastor, talk to him about it. You know, that will definitely help you gain victory in that. A lot of times when people have hidden sin in their lives that is not made public, or they don't tell anyone about it, then they continue to just keep doing it and doing it and doing it since, well, no one knows I got away with it, you know, last time, I'll get away with it this time. Accountability is huge when it comes to marriage problems. If your mom was disrespectful to your dad, set out to be the opposite. If there were things, if you didn't like your mom giving your dad the silent treatment, you don't give the silent treatment. You know, if you didn't like it when your mom just totally disregarded what your dad said and did her own thing, then you do the opposite. And set the example of a wife in love with her husband. Your kids pick up on a lot. And I think one of the securities in a home is where the kids know that mom and dad love each other. The kids know that mom and dad have each other's backs. The kids know that mom and dad, that is the top relationship priority in their life. Kids are very, very secure when they know that there is that foundation. So Joyce, I just saw your comment. She said, I married him because I wanted to spend the restroom. And then she's like, rest of my life with him. I can't type. Oh, you gotta love autocorrect. That's hilarious. One thing that we've done in our marriage is we have set boundaries before something happens. Okay. We have acknowledged the fact that adultery is always a possibility. And even with my husband being a pastor, pastors fall into this a lot. And a lot of it is because they don't have those boundaries or guidelines in place. So one thing that we have always done in our life, we're never alone with a member of the opposite sex. Ever. So if he's ever had counseling to do here with a woman, I'm here with him. That's just what we do. He's never driven in a car alone with a woman. He has never, there's even been times when a woman showed up when he was at church. And so he would leave. If a woman ever shows up, a member or something, most of the time, most of the members are pretty good about knowing his schedule, and they'll bring their kids with them. They'll bring, you know, their husband with them or something. Most are pretty self-aware and they kind of know our standards. But we've had a couple exceptional people that weren't self-aware and would just show up. So when they did, my husband would just leave until they left, and then he would come back. He didn't even want the appearance that he was at church alone with a woman. So we've set those very strict boundaries in our life because we didn't want anything to ever happen. Especially because we know that we both need to be above reproach. He is a pastor. I'm a pastor's wife with a ministry to other women, and we don't want anything to stop that. And adultery or sin like that would definitely stop that. So there are requirements for pastors in the Bible for that reason. So, but let's talk about personal sins now. Whew, I had a lot to talk about. Okay, so what about alcohol? We talked about alcohol earlier. Our number one rule in our house, and this is a McMurtry rule, avoid, avoid, avoid. So for a big part of our marriage, because my husband was on staff under his dad, we followed his dad's never even being around alcohol rule as well, because we wanted to be respectful although we don't have quite as high of a standard when it comes to that, we wanted to be respectful of his dad, especially with him being on staff. So we followed that rule when we were there. Now we do have, we don't like eating in places. We're very uncomfortable still with eating in places that have bars. We don't like places that have the word bar in them, like even Applebee's Grill and Bar. We don't like to eat where everything is centered around the bar. So we really try to avoid places that have the word bar in them or that are centered around the bar. And if we do eat at a place that has alcohol, we ask to be seated as far away from it as possible. As far as like if it has a bar in the place, we ask to be seated as far away as we can. We don't even want to see people drinking. It's just, we're very uncomfortable around it, because the Bible does say not to look at it when it moves in the cup. So we take that literally and we don't want to be around it. Cigarettes and drugs, same thing. Never try them, not once, and it won't be a problem. Same with cigarettes. You know, and even when it comes to alcohol too, I have a very strict policy. I will never even buy it. Even if I know some women are fine with buying it for tinctures and like making vanilla and different things like that, but I don't even ever want it in my cart. I don't want it around me. And and people watch you, you know, they do. And people here in town, they know, I worked at Woodlawn Arts Academy for a few years, and they knew I was a pastor's wife there. And I even had one lady at Aldi's today. Every week when I go, she's always like, I know you from somewhere. Where do I know you? And she told me that again today. She's like, I know you from somewhere. I think I figured it out. I think you were on a Facebook picture of some static hair salon in town. I don't think it was me, but I went there like a couple weeks ago to get my haircut, but I don't think it was me. But she's like, I always remember you because you always have such a nice smile and you're always smiling at people. So that's just such a random thing, but she remembered that about me at Aldi, and I go there every week. So I think she just, I don't know, I think she knows me from Woodlawn or something. But it just goes to show that people are watching. And I don't even want to go through, I told her, I said, well, my husband's a pastor and I don't want to go through the line buying alcohol. She doesn't know why I'm buying alcohol, or if it's just to make vanilla, or if it's for a tincture. That's my personal standard. And I don't want my kids to ever see me with it in the cart. So that's just where we draw the line. So, with drugs and alcohol, you know, we've taken a hard line stance in the McMurtry home. It's just not non-negotiable. We will not be around it. We don't want our kids around it. It will never be in our home, period. What about though the sin of pornography? And this is a big one. Women nowadays are becoming just as addicted to this stuff as men are. A lot of times it's because they were subjected to it as a child, and it planted that seed in their mind and they couldn't stop thinking about it, because pornography is made to be addicting. It's made to warp the mind. It's made to want more and more and more and more. And a lot of times people are subjected as a child, and it's by other people that are trying to get you hooked on it. So if you have this sin in your life, you need accountability. Now, I'm not just talking about getting a filter on your phone, because as Josh Duggar proved, you can bypass that and you can still look at all the nastiness that you want. You can figure it out. I have no idea how you would do that. It has something to do with the dark web, and I don't know how people even access that. I've never looked into it. I don't want weird things starting to show up on my phone. I'm very careful about what I Google. So I don't even want to Google some things, but Google is all I know. And I'm not just talking about like angel eyes, which all these things are good, especially if you have children that are on phones, but even kids have a sin nature and they can figure it out too. I'm talking about actually being accountable to someone who knows you struggle in this area, checking in with them, you know, having them ask, were you victorious this week? Were you able to stay away from looking at it? Removing the temptation. If you can't have a smartphone, get rid of it. You know, if you can't have a smartphone, don't even have one. Remove that temptation from your life. You can just get a flip phone where you can call out and get texts, and that's it. You don't need a fancy thing that you have internet at your fingertips. Teach your kids about the dangers of it. I think this whole Josh Duggar thing has really made an impact on my boys, because they have seen that you can do prison time when you start getting into some of this stuff. And I don't believe it just starts out with the horrible, the worst of the worst stuff. I believe it starts with a regular old gross smut. And then it gets your body and your mind craves harder, deeper, darker things. And it just grows and grows and grows until you're into this just horrendous stuff. And so teach them that from the time that they're little, that if you see something nasty, turn away, don't look. You don't even want to get started down that path. I told my boys, it will warp their minds. It will damage their future relationships with their wives, because men who get hooked on this stuff, it literally changes their brain. It changes their pathways so that they're not able to have just normal relationships, physical relationship with their wife when they get older. So, tell them of the dangers of that. And remember that it is a heart thing. So reach your kids' hearts, let them know that you want them to be happy and you want them to have good relationships with their spouses someday. And this is why you stress this so much. Teach them that even if they hide it, the Lord sees all. And teach them, I was telling Lana today, I thought about that verse that talks about, teaching your kids the commandments, as you walk and, day to day, basically teach them when thou risest up and when thou layest down. A lot of my teaching is done in the car when we're just alone, especially in the one-on-one times. And I was telling her, I said, you're such a beautiful girl, and I think you're going to do great things for the Lord one day. And I told her, I said, my biggest thing that I want for you is that you love Jesus and that you follow his commandments. And remember, Jesus sees everything you do. God sees everything that you do. And start teaching them from a young child. My husband preached a really good sermon yesterday, and he was talking about lying to the Holy Ghost, talking about people that put on fronts, even though they're not really like that. And just showing that it doesn't matter. He told the story of Ananias and Sapphira. It doesn't matter if you convince everyone else, if you're lying to the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost lives within you as a Christian. And your whole mission in life should be to glorify God and bring glory to him and to obey him, because you love him. If you love him, you're going to keep his commandments, and he sees all anyways. So just teach your kids from a young age that, the Lord sees all, and you remember it too. The Lord sees your hidden sins. The Lord knows. So definitely, teach that to your kids. Let me make sure. Sorry if I'm missing the chat, guys. Yes. Isn't the Duggar guy a reprobate though? I don't know where the line for reprobate is. I would think the stuff he was involved in, being raised the way he was, most likely, yes. I can't say enough bad things. And I truly believe that if he is guilty, which the courts found him guilty, his wife Anna still doesn't believe it. But if he was guilty of the things that they said he was, he needs to just be put down, because there is no reforming that. There is no coming back from that. I truly believe his mind is completely corrupt and completely perverted. And, I don't know where the line for reprobation is. And I'm not going to try to determine that, but he definitely fits criteria. That's what I'll say about that. Yeah, that is true too, Sarah. And I found that even with a lot of teens, they don't do so well face to face. They do better in a side to side conversation. And that's why the car is really good for that. A lot of the true emotion kind of comes out, especially because they're trapped and they can't go anywhere. So they kind of just need to sit there and talk to you. So the car is a really good method to communicate in. So, okay. Sorry if I'm missing the chat. I'm trying to keep up, but I'm not doing very good. But how about our thought life? How about breaking generational sins when it comes to thought life? And the above one that I mentioned with the pornography and all that, that can be also a generational thing, especially if it was in your home when you were being raised and you were made to think there's no big deal about this, and it's up to you to break that with your own kids. But our thought life, the way that we were raised, can also play into this. Also by what we are modeled, how our mom acted to different situations kind of can be how we react to different situations. But definitely number one, you need to walk in the spirit. Obviously, that's the important key to all of this, is walking in the spirit. Think on pure things. But if you remove a bad thing, replace it with a good thing. A lot of times people will just try to be like, I'm going to be hardcore. I'm going to get rid of my bad music. I'm going to get rid of my cigarettes. I'm going to get rid of my alcohol. I'm going to throw out my pants. And then they do all this stuff. And then they're left with nothing to wear. They're left with no music to listen to. They're left with no coping mechanism as far as to calm them down like cigarettes used to or alcohol used to. So you have to replace the bad things with good things. Okay. So if you get rid of the bad music, replace it with good music. And I cannot recommend enough the Hamilton family, Majesty music, the Hamilton family. Look up Ron Hamilton songs. I honestly, no songs speak to me the way that his songs do. So look up his songs. They're amazing for kids to listen to. Patch the Pirate songs. I just discovered, because of my friend Ashley, that they are on YouTube. So create YouTube playlists. I have YouTube playlists of different songs I like, and then you can just put it on the TV if you have a smart TV, which most people do, and it can fill the whole house with music. Abby's really good about putting on very calming music in our home, and I think it's really good for the kids to hear that. I would encourage you not to be piping sermons in your home 24/7. That isn't really what kids need to grow and thrive on. I think for me, my kids are around enough preaching and enough sermons that they get it. We have Sunday school too. So we have Sunday school, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, at least 4 times a week they're getting preached at. And then just all the instruction we give to them as parents. So put some fun songs on, put some calming songs on. It doesn't always need to be, hard preaching echoing through the chambers of your home. Your home, you can just ease up a little bit. You want to raise your kids in a, happy, calm environment. So if you are trying to get rid of bad reading material, replace it with good reading material. There's a lot that I can recommend as far as good Christian books. Karen Kingsbury seems to be very safe when it comes to like Christian. She focuses more on relationships, and she never crosses the line as far as talking about inappropriate things. So I think she's very safe. Beverly Lewis has a lot of good ones. There are a lot of Christian authors out there that you can find. Jeanette Oak, I grew up on Jeanette Oak. She's great for younger girls too. She's very clean. I love her books. There are, let's see, trying to think. Elsie Dinsmore, I didn't really, I see a lot of people like recommend her, but honestly, I had a bad feeling when I read through her books. I don't know. Tell me if I'm weird with this, but it's all the story about, I don't know why her dad didn't have custody of her or something, but she gets in the care of her dad or uncle or something. And he basically sets out to kind of reshape the person that she is. She has a lot of bad habits or something. And I felt like it was a little excessive. It was a little over the top. And I didn't really appreciate those books. So I don't recommend those. I do like Anna Green Gables, I think, because I identify so much with her. I really like a lot of her books, and the author is brilliant. Jane Austen for a little bit of old classics. So there is a lot of good material. There are also books about self-help books. I would definitely recommend Christian ones because you can get into a lot of feministy things that you probably don't want influencing you when you get into some self-help books. But I remember I read one and it was about a strong-willed woman, but it was showing you the good side to being a strong-willed woman. And I identified with it very, very, very much because I think it is my strong will that has gotten me through a lot in the Christian life and why I won't do certain things and why I'm strong in this area or whatever. So you can use a strong will to your advantage. And it would be a good one, I think, for moms to read who have strong-willed daughters, just to kind of see it, especially if you don't have a strong will, to kind of see it from that perspective, I think would be good. If you are trying to get rid of alcohol, replace it with something else. Maybe you'll get a caffeine addiction like me. I'm not saying I replaced alcohol with it. I've never had alcohol, but I love coffee and I love refreshers and I love tea. My new thing is lavender tea, lavender London fog, lavender lattes is my new thing. So I love those. If you are trying to get rid of TV, maybe bad TV shows, replace with documentaries. There are so many good documentaries out there. I actually like watching true crime a lot of times, but I wouldn't necessarily let your kids watch that. It could be a little scary. So, but there are so many good documentaries that your kids go watch. And I'm not even talking biblical ones. I'm talking just day-to-day, topics. There are a lot that you can find. Drugs, you can replace with chewing gum, healthy candy, healthy snacks. I'm just saying, don't get rid of everything bad in your life and not replace it with something. You have to replace it with something. I think that's where people get burned out and they just fall, is when they don't have anything good to replace it with. And then what about when it comes to the things of the Lord? We're going to wrap it up. I know I'm going late. I'm surprised. I don't know I could talk this long. Be better than your parents. I'm hoping my kids are better than me. So I don't think my mom would be mad at me saying that. But be better than your parents in some things. I think it's every parent's desire, unless you're a true narcissist, that your child is better than you, that your child is smarter than you, and your child is more disciplined than you and has more self-control than you and is a better Christian than you. I think that's just every parent's heart's desire, right? Maybe I'm just weird. Make God's things the important things. When I was growing up, I have loved church from the time I got saved. My mom was one when I got saved. And so I've pretty much been in church. I've been a Baptist brat my whole life. When I became a teenager and my dad died, we kind of went through, obviously, a hard time. But our church at the time was also going through a hard time. The pastor was leaving to go be a missionary to Romania, and they were trying to find a new pastor. And the board of people looking for the pastor did not want one as strict or conservative as the other pastor. And they were trying to get rid of the King James Bible. They were dropping all their standards. They wanted to take Baptist off of the sign. So my mom decided that it would be better for us to look for another church. So we were visiting other churches on Sunday, but then on Wednesday, we would stay home and she would have us just listen to preaching. And at that time, we did not have the internet or preaching online. So we had these tapes that we would listen to of preaching. And I hated it, to be honest. I hated it. I am a people person. I need to fellowship with God's people. And I never got anything out of that. I would just sit there in misery because I hated it, because I knew church was going on somewhere. So I determined that I was going to be in church whenever I could be. And obviously that's a huge priority for us. That is a non-negotiable in our home. We're at church every time the doors are open. So that is one area where I have been different. I'm never going to make my kids sit at home during church service and listen to preaching online. That's just not going to fly in my home. So please get in a church. Online church is not church. Get into a church. And I stressed that, I don't know, last week or something. But make God's things the important things. And in my home, that's what we do. And also, it's not just, this is just our church that we go to. Own your church. Make your church your church. There's a lot of people that come through that just, we'll try it out, but they don't really own it. They don't take ownership. There's a difference between attending a church and then taking ownership of your church. Taking ownership is being invested, being there for the big days, being there for the services, not going and visiting other churches all the time, not missing Sundays, to go here and there and everywhere. Be invested. Take ownership of your church. I've told you our beer policy, how we do that. And then even how we handle our money. This is something that we've always tried to, tithe comes out first thing. That's just a constant in our life. And then the rest we live off of. So we try to even make God first when it comes to our finances. And he's always blessed. I mean, Yeah, we're like poor, and we've always been, because we've had a big family. When you have a big family, things are going to be tight. But he's always taking care of us. Like I said last week when I was talking to Sarah, we have our debt paid off with the exception of our home. And then even that we don't owe. It'll be paid off in 14 years now. We just refinanced and got a 15-year loan a year ago. So in 14 years, we're going to own that. So God's always taking care of our needs. We've kept our costs low. We've tried to, for the most part, with 8 kids, but he's always taking care of us. How we treat God's people. If you came from a home that just picked apart people all the time and came home every Sunday and had roast preacher for lunch, do different. Raise your kids in a home where you talk good about other people. You don't talk bad about them. Raise your kids in a home where they see you exhibit forgiveness when people hurt you, when they see the way that you talk about God's people and to God's people online, in person. Raise your kids in a home where you're going to model how you interact with God's people, and they should see a clear difference. All through the Bible, we see where it says God warns people not to mess with his children. And a lot of Baptists nowadays will take that, you don't mess with the Jews, but no, you don't mess with God's people. If you're an antichrist rejecting Jew, you're not God's child. Okay, that's a different subject for a different day. God's children are those who have accepted him as Savior. So if you have a brother or sister in Christ and you're treating them like trash, then God's not going to be happy with that. So watch out for his chastening when it comes to things like that. But we show our kids how we treat God's people, how we uplift God's people, how we encourage God's people, how we react if one of God's people hurt us, how we personally react. Are we vindictive? Are we out for blood? Do we try to destroy them? Our kids see everything we do, and that is the biggest example to them. And then the tone in our home. What was the tone in your home growing up? Was it one of anger? Then try not to have it be anger. Was it one of just, negativity and yelling and screaming and fighting? Was that in your home growing up? We'll provide something different for your kids. Break that curse when it comes to your kids. Break that sin pattern when it comes to your home. You set the tone in your home. You're going to try to be different when it comes to that. And how about the language in your home? Did you come from a home? And I never dealt with this. I mean, my mom thought the word crap was a bad word. We were not allowed to say shut up. We weren't allowed to say B-U-T-T. See, I even have a problem saying that on air because it's in my head. Yeah, if you think I'm weird because of that, oh well. That's how my mom was. And it was because when she was being raised, she did use that language. And so after she became a Christian and she was trying to clean up her life, she had a 0 tolerance policy for that in her home. So she went to the other extreme. Now, I'm not as hardline as that in my own home, but I don't like the Christian cuss words, or I don't like the words in place of cuss words. So I don't like my kids even using those, like even what the heck, I don't like that. And you say hell's not a cuss word. Yes, but watch my husband's video on being a new creature. He goes into language and he talks about how even though there are certain serious words in the Bible like hell and damnation and damn and other words, when you use them like the world uses them, then that takes away the serious nature of it. So as Christians, we should be striving to use them in the biblical sense only. So if you grew up in a house where there was cussing and, just people were mean to each other and putting each other down, and your siblings were, constantly cussing each other out, don't do that in your own life. Don't cuss your husband out, don't make a guideline. Okay, kids, these are the words that are not allowed in our home. These words are okay, but these words are not allowed. And remember, whatever you do in moderation, your kids are probably going to do in excess. So even if you use biblical cuss words, but not in the biblical sense, your kids will probably take it a step further and use the non-biblical ones. So always keep that in mind as well. But I'm going to wrap it up. So most everything we talked about has to do with having some non-negotiables in your life. You shouldn't change just because you change. And I remember the giveaway, so I'm going to do that. You shouldn't change just because you change churches or move across the state. If you do that, you're showing that you had no core beliefs. You had no core convictions. You were doing it just to fit a mold or fit into a group. You should have some non-changeable standards in your own life. Figure out what those are. You should have some policies that don't change, like we do with church, beer, language, etc. Also, breaking generational sins comes down to walking in the Spirit, and that's the bottom line. Realize when you have a weakness in your own life and give it over to the Lord and tell him you need his help because you cannot do it on your own. And because you are so prone to do this sin, because that's all you saw exhibited, realize that you're going to need his help more than ever to break that. Know your triggers, know your coping mechanisms to help you get through that, and then go from there. If Israel repented, that generational curse was broken and God would forgive them. God is a very forgiving God, but we must acknowledge where we have messed up and strive to do better. And I really feel like for some women, the hurdle is just realizing I have this problem. People can tell you have a problem from the outside looking in, but until you accept responsibility for your weaknesses in your life, acknowledge that you have a problem, confess it, get accountability, and strive to do better, you're going to stay stuck in that generational sin unless you decide. No one can decide that for you. You have to decide that. So, yes. And I agree, Joyce. And that's kind of why I'm so down on foul language. There is something very elegant about clean language in a woman. I feel like femininity promotes elegant language, and I'm very picky about it. And I also think that foul language shows a lack of intelligence because you couldn't think of a better word for what you just used. You couldn't think of a, more intelligent word, a smarter word. So I just, foul language makes me very uncomfortable. But yeah, Stephanie, I don't agree with that. I think, why would we as Christians, I always tell the story of Peter, how they knew he tried to convince him he was of the world because he used the world's language. Why would we as Christians take biblical words like that and use it in a connotation where the world does, or like the world does? We're taking away from the effectiveness of it. And like he explained, hell is not wicked. Hell's actually a very, very just place that God created for sinners and those who don't accept him. So hell is not an actual wicked place. The people that are there are wicked. So when we say what the HE double hockey sticks, we're taking away the power of hell being a just place that God created for wicked people. So when you think of it in that context, it really makes sense. So, and, if people have a problem with that, whatever, you have to figure out your own standards for your life. That's our standard for our life. This is my show, so I'm not going to get on here and say, yeah, go ahead and you use whatever words you want. It doesn't matter. It's just words. No, because I believe that God says we're going to give an account for everything that we say. And I take that seriously. So that is why I am very careful about my language. I'm also very careful about what I say, and I take ownership of my words. That's why I don't have anonymous accounts. I will not post something anonymously. I will not use an anonymous account to leave a comment on someone's channel or Facebook post or whatever. I always use my name because then I am held accountable for my words. So that's just my policy. So yeah. Okay, but let's do, yes, I agree, Joyce. Joy. Now I'm saying, now I can't even read. Yes, HE double hockey sticks. That's the saying my husband uses because he has a hard time even bringing himself to use it, not in a biblical sense. He has no problem preaching about it. And a lot of preachers shy away from that. He does not shy away from it while preaching, but he doesn't use it in a worldly sense. He only uses it in a biblical sense. So, okay, giveaway. I'm going to send whoever gives the first right answer. Jenny did on her Cricut or Cry Cut or whatever you call it, these cute little Gently Led Sisters stickers. And I wish I could show you. I totally forgot to bring it, but I guess you're going to be surprised. It's about that big, and it's my logo, and you can just peel it off and stick it to whatever. She sent me to one for myself and one to give away. So I'm going to send that along with a $10 Starbucks card to the first person that answers this question. And now I got to think of it. Okay, I know. So you have to kind of be thinking of, you have to kind of been here since the first. What was my father-in-law's standard when it came to alcohol in restaurants? What was his standard when it came to that? So I'm going to wait until someone answers. I talked about that way at the beginning. So if you've stuck around for, I went long tonight, an hour and 20 minutes. Sorry, I just jabbered on and on and on. There's a lot of things that we could go into though with this topic. And if you guys have any more topics or any more comments or, you know, questions about it, or whatever, leave it down below. Sorry if I missed you guys in the chat. I wasn't keeping. Julia got it. Yeah, he would not eat there. He would not eat there even if they served it. Yeah, if it was being served in the restaurant at all, it was a no-go. So that's why we did a lot of fast food and a lot of family restaurants. So, yep, you got it, Julia. So I'm not even going to have to ship it. I can just give that to you at church. So that'll be easy. KJV, that's kind of our standard. Then if there's a bar in it, no restaurants at all. But my father-in-law's was zero alcohol policy. Wouldn't walk down the aisle, wouldn't, you know, so because of that, it just instilled a deep hatred for alcohol in my husband's mind, which I'm glad. So yep, Midwest, you're right. Zero tolerance policy. No alcohol at all. Alcohol didn't eat there. So, all right. So Julia is the winner. That's nice and easy. I don't even have to ship it out. So I can give it to you Wednesday. So you got yourself a $10 Starbucks card or Dunkin'. You can choose. You let me know what you want, Dunkin' or Starbucks. And then you don't like Dunkin' though, because you always give me the Dunkin' code. So Starbucks, I'm thinking. But let me know. I will bring it Wednesday and give it to you. So congratulations. Thanks for hanging around, guys. We'll see you next week. I don't know what the topic is yet. If you have any topic suggestions, leave it down below. Keep posting the Gently Led Sisters group. Great stuff going on in there. Great advice being given. So that's why we're there, to encourage each other, build each other up, and look for biblical answers. So from other women who have done it and been there before us. Oh, okay. So you can use it for donuts. Okay, I will get you a Dunkin' then.